It's great to have everyone here. Thank you for joining us for the first in this year's three-part Women Lead series. This series began 4 years ago as a nonprofit board development program and has grown into a women's leadership program with an eye toward nonprofit board or other volunteer service. The program was renamed Women Lead last year. Lead, educate, activate, develop. We are thrilled to have so many of you, members and guests, in attendance today. My name is Patricia Massey-Hogue, and I am the Executive Director of the Women's Impact Fund. Our mission is to strengthen communities through maximizing women's leadership and philanthropy through collective giving, education, and engagement. In addition to our grant making, it is my privilege to collaborate with our members as they develop events like today's. Thank you to the Women Lead Subcommittee of the Member Education Committee, led by Joy Marshall, for their work leading to today's event. Special thanks as well to those members and friends of Women's Impact Fund who choose to make a gift to our annual fund, which funds critical operating needs of our organization. Typically, this event would require a $25 ticket purchase. However, we are offering all of our activities without charge during the pandemic. If you're able, I hope that you might consider visiting womensimpactfund.org/donate to contribute to the annual fund at an amount that is meaningful to you. Before we start today's program, just a couple of Zoom tips. Given that we are in Zoom meetings platform, for the best experience, I would encourage you to use the speaker view throughout the program. On a Mac or a PC, you can adjust this view at the top right-hand corner of your window just by clicking the button. You can toggle between speaker and gallery view. We will also be using breakout rooms later in the program, so really encourage you to have your video on if able to fully engage in that part. And a reminder to keep yourself on mute if you aren't speaking. If you've got any Zoom questions, just throw them in the chat and I'll be happy to help you out. And make sure to stick around because at the very end of the program, we will be doing a drawing for 3 random attendees to get a copy of our facilitator, Diana Faison's most recent book, which is exciting. And finally, I want to thank our community partners who are listed here behind me. Specifically today, we thank JP Morgan, whose support for Women's Impact Fund is being recognized throughout this Women Lead series. We are grateful for their loyal partnership with the Women Lead program throughout the years. Here to share a few remarks from JP Morgan and introduce our facilitator is Andrea Smith. Andrea is an associate in the private bank at JP Morgan and joined Women's Impact Fund as a member last year. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Patricia. It's great to see all of you virtually. Well, on behalf of myself and my colleagues, Rebecca Wren, Matt Moore, and the rest of our JP Morgan private bank team, I really would like to thank you, Patricia, as well as the rest of Women's Impact for your continued partnership over the years. As a member of Women's Impact Fund, both Rebecca Wren and myself are honored to be part of such a powerful organization and to be able to support you through our personal as well as our professional lives, specifically through events like the Women Lead series we're kicking off today that empower women to be leaders in our communities and organizations. We're excited to have Diana Faison here with us to kick off the first of 3 installments of the Women Lead series. Diana is a partner at Flynn Heath Holt Leadership and a published author. She has over 20 years of experience in the field of leadership training and is focused on helping female leaders move forward faster. We're thrilled to have Diana and her program manager, Casey Stewart, here with us today. So with that, Diana and Casey, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Patricia. What an honor. I am a member of the Women's Impact Fund, so you're near and dear to my heart. Before I click over to the slides, I just want to, by way of introduction, to tee off of what Andrea said, and that is I have a really, not just a soft spot for women and women supporting women and locking arms for real change to occur. It's been my life mission for the last 20 years, along with my business partners, Jill Flynn and Catherine Heath and Brenda Wenzel. So what a great opportunity. Thank you. And I would just add that I have 2 grown daughters. So this whole notion of passing the baton to the next generation so I can retire is really near and dear to me. So I look forward to sharing quickly what our research and information has informed about the state of women today. And I would just begin by saying, unleashing your inner Wonder Woman. I think we need to answer that question today. How do we do that? What is the power source for that? And I'm going to share with you some interesting statistics because there's lots of good news. Maybe our source needs to come from role models. You know, in the S&P 500 world, women CEOs are starting to appear, and we're seeing more and more of them. But then in our research, as we step back, we begin to analyze the data a little bit more deeply. And here's what we know today. Number one, 44.7 is the number of women that are holding professional jobs today. Okay. It was actually closer to 50 not too long ago, but it's close. You can think, all right, so 50-50 men and women entering professional jobs today. Okay, that feels pretty good. But then as we matriculate, we learn that 26.5 is the percentage of women that hold executive offices. Further, we dive down, and 5.8% of women are CEOs in Fortune 500 companies. And so I begin to wonder, is it really good news? And so help me understand this. I'm always about researching with every group that I meet. So why do you think this gap exists? Why is this occurring? And so use the chat. I know I've got 50, 60, some odd number of you, maybe 70, I heard at one point. Use the chat function so we can engage in this conversation. And I'm going to turn to Casey and say, Casey, read some out to me that seem interesting. So why is this? Why do we get, what's happening that 44.7% equates to 5.8% in the C-suite? Is it skill? Is it talent? Is it knowledge? Are we not educated? What is it? What do you think it is? Casey, what are you reading?
Ann Allen says motherhood and lack of time or flexibility, or expectations of senior leadership roles are not aligned with women's caregiving responsibilities. Another one of family responsibilities falling to women. Lack of balance in domestic childcare type of activities in home. So a lot of a strong theme here.
Yeah. So that whole notion of time and how much energy and focus we can expend when we are, pulled in so many different directions. And certainly the pandemic has exacerbated that. So yes, I agree. What else?
Lack of sponsorship from men or legacy of male leadership.
Yeah. Yes, so true. Yeah, the legacy, it's a male leadership model that we're a part of, for sure. Because if 5.8% are women, you do the math, 94% are made up of men. Kind of interesting there. So yeah, the sponsorship and the research is really clear that we tend to sponsor people who look like us. So that begs the question, and I don't think men look like me necessarily, maybe when my hair was shorter, but yeah. So anything else, Casey, before I move on?
Despite skills and talents, women are not seen as leaders.
Yeah, because the male model, the male model is what's held up as the prototype. And we are different. We should be different. I would always encourage someone to be their authentic self. Well, I will just say this. There's no one answer. I know we have the skills. I know we have the knowledge. I know we have the talent. And I do think it is all of the above, and it's different things for different people in different organizations. So the bad news is I don't have the quick and easy answer. I just know that this affects organizations because profitability is different. Innovation, it's not realized as much as it could be. The research is clear that more diversity in the C-suite and on your board leads to more profitable organizations. It also leads to more innovation. And so those are important concepts for us to realize. Let me throw one more dose of cold water at you. It's even worse for women of color. Look at those numbers. Can you see that? Entry level, 18%, C-suite, 3%. So it's not just a crisis for women, it's particularly a crisis for women of color. And we know that the pandemic has only made this worse as well for some of the childcare reasons that you alluded to. And two quick other statistics are that in September, it was measured that 865,000 women had left the workforce. That's 4 times more than men. And in fact, there's been this phrase coined, the she session. And the say that 3 times fast. The she session is well in play now. And we know that we don't know, but what I'm hearing and what I'm reading is that we are being knocked back to 1988 level numbers. So this is unacceptable. But here's what I do know. There's more good news coming, friends, I promise. So we have done a lot of research in our first 2 books and in our HBR articles and the number of other places where we publish. And Break Your Own Rules and the Influence Effect, A New Path to Power for Women Leaders, really talk about 2 dynamics in play. Number 1, there is a mental component to your source of power. There is a physical component to your source of power. In our first book, Break Your Own Rules, it's all about the thinking patterns that block our path to power. So sometimes our mental propensity around certain situations informs our physical, and our physical informs our mental. That's what our research tells us, because we know we're just as smart, we know we're just as talented, but we are juggling a lot of roles and responsibilities. We are also lacking in sponsorship. The time is an issue. All of those things that you mentioned, the leadership model that's modeled after men, all of that's in play. But a woman named Amy Cuddy, and you've probably read about her, and she has a terrific TED Talk. And some of her research has been questioned, but nonetheless, there are some important findings that will inform this argument I'm making about mental and physical. She's a Harvard professor, and she was teaching MBA classes and recognized that the women in these MBA classes were shrinking to fit. They were just, in the room like this and not really speaking up, or if they did, it was kind of like this. And she noticed, what's the difference between men and women? And I need women to participate more. It's a part of your grade. And then she went on to measure participants in a stressful situation. And her idea of a stressful situation was with an interview process with somebody who had no affect. They just looked at you like this. And she measured people who did a physical power pose, and you've probably heard that term before, as well as people who did nothing prior to the interview. So they did some power-like behaviors in one group and then not in the other. And they measured cortisol and testosterone. Cortisol being the stress hormone, testosterone being the power hormone. And sure enough, in the group that exercised some power physicality prior to the interview, their cortisol went down and their testosterone went up. And in the group that did nothing, sure enough, they're in this stressful situation, their cortisol actually went up and their testosterone went down. So we know that small changes to the body can affect the mind. And we're starting to recognize that the mind can also affect the body. So all of that to inform how I want to have this conversation about what we call personal power. This is where I fervently believe, and our research takes us to, our mental, our mind, and our body, things that we do can help us unleash that inner Wonder Woman all through this notion of personal power. So let's get the chat going again. If I were to say, insert your name and say, now that is a powerful woman. Now, Patricia, she is one power woman. Or if I were to say, Joy, man, that's a woman with some power. What is your reaction to you, insert your name, being called powerful, owning a lot of power? How does that land on you? How do you react? Is that good? Is it bad? Is it worrisome? Is it scary? Is it to be celebrated? What's your reaction? Throw some chat at Casey.
They say it's encouraging, feels awesome, gives confidence.
Confidence.
They use it.
Anybody feel differently? Let's be honest. We're sitting around the kitchen table here today, and we're getting honest.
A responsibility comes with power. From Karen.
Yep, I'm getting that. Yep, I hear that a lot. Responsibility, a little bit more pressure. Am I good enough? Can I do it? Anybody feel that way?
Some people, when they hear it, they say they don't really believe it.
Mental.
Or at first, I didn't like how the word power made me feel, like it was mean or aggressive in connotation.
Yes. Okay. Because who are we thinking has power? Legitimate power.
Someone says there's a fear of failure that comes along with power.
Oh, now we're getting it. So it's this, there is this mind game that's starting to happen. And we often say there's a love-hate relationship when it comes to women stepping in and owning their power. Because on one level, it makes me feel great. On one level, it adds a layer of confidence. On one level, it makes me really want to, it encourages me. And then on another level, it's, oh my gosh, the pressure. Oh my gosh, the responsibility. Can I live into it, live up to it? Does this mean I'm like a man? What are the expectations? So yes, pressure, responsibility. How will you be received? There's a little bit, you've heard the concept of an imposter syndrome that's associated with it. I couldn't possibly. So let's break this down a little bit and have a little bit more fun with it, because in our research, we have coined 3 types of power. Position power, which is that power that comes from a title. It's what's on your business card if you still have one of those. Patricia has a certain amount of position power in Women's Impact Fund because she's the executive director. She's got that title. So sometimes we have a position within an organization or within a company or within our team. I'm the chair of this line of business or the leader of this line of business or this function. I have position power in my family because I'm a mom, and what I say goes. So I use that card every now and then. I just, I'm guilty of saying just because I said so. Bet you have. That's position power. The second kind is expert power. A lot of people feel really comfortable with this. These are your credentials. This is your education. This is your certifications. This is your experience. I'd like to think after 20 years, I'm leaning into a lot of my expert power around leadership development, around what the dynamics are for women, my experience running organizations, practice leader, that sort of thing. So I'm getting my position power, and taking that experience and putting it into my expert power. Sometimes you don't have any position power. You know more than your boss, but you know a heck of a lot. And, leaning into that and using that expert power is a source of comfort. And then there's this third bucket, what we call personal power. And I often, if I had more time, would have you visualize. You could still do it. I just won't have you chat about it. Think of somebody that you think has tremendous personal power. What is it they look like? What is it that they say or do that made that person come to mind? You know what? We got time. Casey, calling an audible. Think of somebody that you visualized when I said, who has personal power? What does that look like? Can you describe it so we can start to understand it more deeply?
Someone who is articulate.
Yes.
We have.
Speaks well. Okay.
Self-confident, leans into conversations.
Leans into conversations and shy away from them. What does confidence look like? Pull that apart for me. I would agree. It's definitely confidence.
We have persuasive without authority.
Oh, yeah. So they don't have the position power, but they're very persuasive. You'll read about that in the influence effect, because there are strategies to be persuasive. Okay.
We have composed and not afraid to state their opinion.
Yes. Yes. Having a stated point of view, and not being afraid to share that.
Authentic.
Else? Yeah. You gotta be who you are for sure. You get it. You know what this is. So my question for you, and we're going to insert a poll here. So everybody get your little fingers ready. We have a comfort level. There's one that we go to more often. And I wonder what it is. Are you more comfortable with position power? Are you more comfortable with, you use all three. So let me take that off the table. But which one are you more comfortable with? Position power, expert power, or personal power? Back to that feeling that confidence and that power. So insert the poll. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see where you are. Let's see. There's no right or wrong here. Okay. Jockeying. Everybody got a moment? You got it?
Getting close.
Don't you wish we could watch election results like this? All right. I'd close it. Interesting. I see this a lot. We have much more comfort feeling prepared, knowing what we're talking about. In fact, I'm not going to speak up if I don't. I will rely and feel most comfortable with knowing what I'm supposed to know. And I see this a lot when I talk to executives and they say something like, Diana, I tried all day long to get Donna and Kendall and Joy and Patricia and Lee to go after that position. But I had to talk Patricia into it. I had to talk to her for 2 different days and she still didn't want to take it. And yet at the same time, I got 3 guys lining up my door that don't know half of what Patricia and Joy and Donna and Kendall and Lee know. Have you ever done that? Where you thought, I'm just not quite comfortable because you didn't think you had the expertise. But wonder if you leaned into your personal power and said, I stay calm in a crisis. I am confident I'll learn how to do that. And that's a great example of something that's a distinction between personal and expert power. But it's interesting because I see this phenomenon a lot. So we had equity between position and personal power. So that's kind of interesting. So let's break this down even further. Okay, Diana, I'm with you. I'm going to learn how to do this personal power. I got it. Let's do it. So back to the mental and the physical informing personal power I'm talking about now. We did a review of the literature and tore apart confidence and said, well, how do we know it when we see it? That's why I was asking you, what does it look like? And there's 3 components that we found, 3 buckets. The first one was body language and a physicalness. So posture, gesturing, a smile can show confidence. So this isn't everything, but these are the buckets that it fell in. Facial expressions, eye contact. Eye contact's really, really critical. How you gait, how you walk into a room, how you sit down, how you introduce yourself, putting your hand out there in a firm way. We also know that speaking and our voice is a confidence marker. This should not be rocket science to you. But we also know that the volume you use, changing up your intonation, the cadence, the tone, the pitch, one that often people don't think about is pausing. Landing a point. Silence, I like to say, is a sound. It can really be powerful. And then there, of course, there's the words that you use. So are you using filler words like so, maybe, kind of, that sort of thing, adapters? Are you not adapters, but you're filling in. Are you using language that is vivid and can be seen and it's purposeful? Are you getting to the point? You have a targeted message. But here's where I want to caution us a little bit, because we will prepare all day long for what we're going to say. We don't prepare enough for how we're going to say it, because there's been research to prove where in communication, where there's a disconnect, where our message was not being received the way we intended it, we have learned that 55% of the disconnect is when our body doesn't match the message. 38% when our voice does not match the message. We're not showing enough energy, for instance. And only that leaves a grand 7% for the actual words that we choose. I don't know about you, but I put a lot of effort into what I'm talking to you about and a lot of practice. And sometimes it's about how we say it, not exactly what we say. So keep these confidence and markers in mind and ask yourself that question: is there something I could do differently? Or something better, I would add, that you already do well, and rely on that strength. Another fun piece of research has been related to how we just very subtly undermine our power. We like to call these power robbers. And I know that this was attached, I believe, Patricia, it was attached to the invite, or it will be sent to you. Forgive me for drawing.
It'll be sent as a follow-up. Yep.
That's it. Thank you. So with the verbal power robbers and non-verbal power robbers, try to say that 3 times fast. These power robbers, what do you notice? I'd love some reaction to this as you read this, and you're going to have time in a small group to discuss this. So, but which one? Let's start with the verbal, and let's open it up to chat because I'm monitoring our time and I think we're good. What are some verbal power robbers that stand out to you that you thought, never thought about that one? Or maybe it's, yeah, that one's mine all day long and then some. What stands out to you on the left-hand side, the verbal power robbers? And Casey, I'll let you tell me what they're chatting about.
We actually have a great question from Karen. How do racial and ethnic uniqueness influence the confidence markers and how they're interpreted?
Yes, great question. And I'll be honest with you, when we did a review of the literature, we did not distinguish between any groups of people. So that is, it's universal, and it's universal in what we studied were people in the United States. It would be a great study to go back and add cultural and ethnic components to this, for sure. And that's not what that review reflects. I will tell you that I guess what I would say is that because we coach so many women globally, that we know that there are distinctions in the Japanese culture, for instance, and what is acceptable. And navigating that is certainly, and I could go on to with different cultures, but you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people resonating with asking too many questions or the apologizing and allowing people to interrupt.
Yes, I get that one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get it back once somebody's interrupted? You got to stand your ground. You can say, I appreciate your point. Let me finish mine, or I will finish mine now. What I also love to do is have women supporting each other. So that's why I like to see more than one woman in the C-suite or in an executive position, because when I get 2 or 3 or 4 women in a room, they can be a real support network for each other. Casey made a really good point. I want her to finish that. And so supporting one another can be helpful in those interruptions. And asking too many questions, is this an inquiry? Or are you trying to connect the dots, understand it more deeply? That you have to ask yourself, we all have questions to ask. It's just, when is it too much? Or is there another way for me to get that information? Good discussion, good discussion. What about on the nonverbal side? What's standing out to you?
Let's see. Christy says that she's an excessive note taker.
Yes, I get this one every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and why? I mean, just like asking questions, don't I need to know? I don't know about you. I always say I have too many browsers open. So it's like, I can't keep up. Of course, I've got to take notes. Why in the world would that be a power robber?
Mm-hmm. Emily says multitasking, such as being on video calls and taking a lot of notes.
Yeah, it's easier to take more notes in this two-dimensional setting that we're in. Here's what I would say, is that when you are not showing up with your full self, it's not that we think you shouldn't take notes. But if I'm doing this the entire time and not engaging, we know that body language is 55%, then my eye contact is important. And yes, there are cultural distinctions, back to the point that was made earlier. I totally agree with that. But understanding how is it you show up and look engaged and connect with somebody is more important than the actual, fine detail that you're trying to capture. There are lots of ways to capture a quick note and then come back to it. I have to do it. I mean, I certainly have to get notes taken, but there are other ways. Sometimes I invite somebody with me to the meeting to help me manage that, so I can manage the relationship versus the task at hand. Anything else stand out on either side? Let me say over-explaining. Women, I'm going to tell you right now, we take too long to get to the point. Most of us. And I'm a flaming extrovert, so I know I do. You probably are shocked to learn that about me. But at the same time, I know I have to be prepared and rehearsed. And what is the one point I want to make? What are the 2 points that are worthy? I do that in my emails. I'll say there are 2 important points I want you to read, or 2 things you need to know, and then attach the rest. Get to the point. Executives particularly appreciate that. Anything else before I move on? Okay. All right, well, how does this equate to this world? Take a look at the New Yorker magazine cover. What does this woman look like? Does this resonate? I'm trying to look at my floor and everything around me and go, okay. I didn't bring a glass of wine. It's just a little early like she did, but I see the wine bottles up in the cabinet and I see the weights on the floor and the cat off to the side and then the stack of books and the Amazon boxes. Do you see all this? How many of you feel like that? Yeah, right? Yeah. So how do power robbers or these confidence markers show up, affect, impact this two-dimensional world that we're now living in? Because honestly, as much as I am zoomed out, I know that there's always going to be some aspect of this going forward, more than there was prior to COVID-19. Any thoughts about that? Chat with me.
Everyone's saying she looks powerful. She looks great from the waist up.
But what about the waist down? I mean, do you show up on your Zoom call or in your WebEx meeting looking the part? Looking like you're going to the office that day, a real office? Do you segue your mind? And believe me, I get it. Some of us have kids running in and out. We have dogs barking. And yes, there's a certain amount of latitude that we all need. But, taking a shower, putting on my makeup, making sure that I'm prepared and showing up as if this is my day and my work, it really, the physical is informing the mind. And then there's a mental shift. I'm ready for my day. And I get it that we're all juggling a lot. So this is not a guilt trip, but I can't help but wonder, what could I do differently to minimize any power robbers that I might be demonstrating on these two-dimensional calls? So it's worth thinking about and it's worth talking about in your small groups. So speaking of which, let's have conversation in smaller groups. So you're going to have 15 minutes in a small group. And you've got wonderful facilitators that are going to lead you. And think about the mental and the physical components that I've introduced to you today. And I know it's been quick, but if you were to start, stop, or continue anything that we talked about, fill in the blank. By starting, stopping, or continuing this, I will enhance my personal power. That's the goal here. That's unleashing your inner Wonder Woman. So how will you enhance your power, your personal power? And then most importantly, what's the outcome? What will happen as a result of that? So off you go, just like Star Trek, and you get beamed into another room, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, did we solve it all? Everybody stop, start, or continue something? All right, Donna, unmute because I'm coming to you, girl, first. Oh, you're on mute, Donna.
I was gonna say, I'd rather have my group answer.
No, you get to. I got 5 minutes to wrap this up, girl. What resonated in your group? What's something that you would share with the board?
I think, I was so proud of my ladies. A lot of them were very self-aware and were very clear about the one or two. I said, you can't do all of it in terms of starting, stopping, continuing. So they were really very precise about one or two things they wanted to do and focus on for themselves. So it varied. It could be speak more firmly all the way through and command an audience and not trail off. It could be taking greater pride in credentials and sharing that, or it could simply be being okay with silence and not having to talk so much. So there were everybody had their own little area of opportunity of things they wanted to either stop, start, or continue, and they really understood what outcomes they should be looking for. So it was a pleasure working with our group.
Oh, that's great. You raise a really good point about introductions, particularly those of us that have complicated last names. We tend to just say, hey, I'm Diana. No, I'm Diana Faison. I'm the practice leader for the BPI group.
Yeah.
You know, stepping into our position as well as our full name is an example of personal power. And we shortchange ourselves. Our full name is an expression of ourselves. So I like that.
And embracing your title. I mean, be proud of it, not feel like you have to justify why you had the role. That was very insightful, one of the insightful ones.
Good.
But everybody knew themselves well, and that was really powerful.
That's great. How about Kendall? There's Kendall with all her great kid artwork.
That's right.
Love it. That's personal power right there.
That's right. That's right. Some free artwork. So we had a great group as well, Donna. And I think one thing we started with was talking about some of the language, a lot of the sort of verbal piece that we use in our communications, just qualifiers. What do you think? That type of thing, really leaning into to that piece. And one of the suggestions we had was Grammarly can check you on sort of, you know, your traditional grammar mistakes, but also some of those words, qualifiers that you don't need, right? And sort of at least, she made the comment that you have the decision then, do you want to include it? Was that intentional or no? Was it just sort of a, you know, a piece that you revert to? And I think that's where we spent some time talking about trying to strike that right balance, right? As women, are there areas where we want to lean into some of our innate, maybe leadership, working with folks, not just striving for the male model, and really thinking about what is that balance that we want to work towards. So we had a great group, really enjoyed it.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'd love to hear from all the groups. I'm not going to be able to do that to be timely at the 12:30. I hope you'll stay in touch and have this conversation. I hope you'll share the power robbers with others, or these 3 types of power, because one of the things you can do is ask people to watch. Say, I'm really trying to stop this, or I'm really trying to do this, and have each other support each other in terms of people being on the lookout, particularly on these Zoom calls. So before I bid adieu, I'm going to leave you with a quote. And it is, your personal power is not something that is going to reveal itself at some later date. Your power is a result of your decision to reveal it. You are powerful in whatever moment you choose to be. So change your mental perspective, reframe where needed, and try some of these physical changes to see if they don't inform the mind as well. It's been a joy, ladies. I know Patricia has some housekeeping right to tie it up.
Thank you so much, Diana. This was really a powerful time, to use your phrase, together. I hope you all feel like you've got something you can take that's actionable from our time together today. I know that I do. So I'm going to have Casey put up a poll. Instead of emailing you a post-event survey, we're going to do it right here. So if you'll just share with us a little bit of feedback on what you've learned today, what you'll be taking away, we'd appreciate it. It'll help inform our future programming. Also, as promised, I have got the winners of the Influence Effect book that we will be sending out to the group. And are you all, there's the poll. All right, so make sure I got it. Thank you. All right, and that's Zing Ju. Are you still here, Zing? Zing? I think she's still here.
Y'all,
Yes, she is. Okay, I see her. Karen Gunther.
I am still here.
Yes, I see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Gunther and Lisa Luth. So I will get that in the mail to all of you. And I just want to take the time to thank you, Diana and Casey from Flint Heath Holt. Thank our Women Lead Subcommittee led by Joy Marshall and our community partner, JP Morgan. I hope all of you will check out the Women's Impact Fund website to sign up for the remaining 2 parts of the Women Lead series if you have not already. And I will note that registration for the February 23rd event will close on February the 18th. So make sure that you go ahead and sign up for that one. It's doing some work with the Myers-Briggs personality assessment and leadership. So you'll need to take that in advance, and we'll send more instructions to those of you who sign up. I'm so glad you all were here with us today. I hope that you stay healthy and well until the next time we see each other, and have a great afternoon. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Thank you.